The first thing I noticed about Blackwater Cove wasn't the houses or the streets, but the sound. It wasn't the peaceful crash of waves you hear in movies. This was different. The ocean here had a voice, deep and rough, a kind of endless growl that pressed in through the car windows as my mom drove us down the narrow road into town. It didn't sound alive so much as hungry. We passed a crooked sign leaning on a rusted post that read, "Welcome to Blackwater Cove, East 1789. The letters were faded almost white, and a seagull with one cloudy eye sat on top of it, watching us go by. The bird didn't move, not even when our car rattled past. I tugged my headphones tighter over my ears, though the batteries had been dead for an hour. The static hiss was better than silence. Better than the sound of tires crunching on gravel and the ocean dragging its breath in and out. My mom tried to sound positive, her voice carrying that brittle cheer she used whenever she was nervous. Fresh air will be good for us. Eli, a slower pace. You'll get used to it. I didn't answer. Outside the window, the houses sagged with age. Salt had stripped the paint from the wood, leaving behind dull gray skeletons. Nets hung on fences like cobwebs. Even the mailboxes leaned half-rusted through. There wasn't a single house that looked alive. Not really. The whole place smelled like wet wood and rotting fish. And then I saw it. A lighthouse at the edge of a cliff. Its tower black with salt. Its windows blank and empty. Carved into the stone at its base were the words Grief Point. The name sat heavy in my chest. Nobody called a place that unless they had a reason. We turned down a side road and pulled up to the house we'd be renting. It was 2 stories, but squat and tired, like it had been left in the rain for years. The siding curled back in places, and the porch sagged under its own weight. As my mom fiddled with the keys, I thought I saw someone at the end of the street, a figure, tall and motionless, standing in the mist. I couldn't make out his face, only that he was there, as still as a post. The smell of brine filled my nose, sharp and sour. My chest prickled as if the air had dropped 10 degrees. Then I blinked, and the figure was gone. I told myself it was just the fog or maybe my imagination. That night, couldn't sleep. The ocean never stopped. It slammed against the rocks with the rhythm of a heartbeat, louder and louder as the hours crawled by. Sometime after midnight, I reached for the one thing of Dad's I still carried. His old digital voice recorder. He used to take it everywhere, recording interviews, ideas, little notes to himself. Since he disappeared 3 months ago, I hadn't gone a day without it. I clicked it on and held it to my mouth. My voice sounded too small in the dark. My name is Eli Carter. Day 1 in Blackwater Cove. This place sucks. End of entry. I hit stop, but I didn't turn it off. I just let it sit on the nightstand, the red light glowing faintly in the dark. I rolled onto my side, trying to block out the crash of the waves. That was when I heard it. The recorder hissed. Then a voice slipped through. It wasn't mine. It wasn't my dad's. It was low and wet, like someone talking underwater, each syllable breaking apart and dragging. Come see. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. I sat up fast, staring at the recorder. The red light was still on, blinking. It was still recording, still listening. Come see. I snatched it up, my hands shaking, and clicked it off. The room was silent again, except for the ocean hammering the rocks outside. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the recorder, afraid to breathe, afraid that if I listened too closely, I'd hear the voice again. By morning, I convinced myself it had been a dream. School was a single hallway in a brick building that looked ready to crumble. The classroom smelled faintly of mildew and the ceilings sagged in places from old water damage. The other kids stared at me like I had two heads. Most of them were younger. A few were older. Only one looked close to my age. A girl with thick glasses and long black hair tied back in a braid. She sat by herself at lunch, and when I dropped into the seat across from her, she looked up with sharp, assessing eyes. "You're new," she said like she didn't care one way or the other. "Yeah, Eli." She adjusted her glasses. "Maya." We sat in silence for a moment. She chewed her sandwich like it was a chore, then said, "You shouldn't go near the water." The way she said it made me pause. "Why not?" Her gaze flicked up to mine. Her eyes were darker than I expected, heavy with something older than she was. "Because of the dead tide." I frowned. "The what?" "The dead tide," she repeated softer this time, as if she didn't want anyone else to hear. "When the water isn't moving in or out, that's when he comes." "Who?" "The drowning man." Her voice dropped almost to a whisper, but the name still made the hair rise on the back of my neck. I smirked, though my mouth felt dry. Sounds like something out of a cheap horror movie. She pushed her tray away, her eyes narrowing like she'd heard it all before. "You'll see." Then she stood and walked off without another word. That evening, I wandered down to the docks, partly because I was curious and partly because I wanted to prove to myself that Maya was just trying to scare me. The air was colder there, the smell of fish guts and seaweed mixing with the salt. The boards creaked under my sneakers. Boats rusted at their moorings, ropes groaning as they tugged against the water. Someone sat at the far end of the dock, sketching in a notebook. A boy, maybe 14, with messy hair falling into his eyes. His fingers were black with charcoal, smudges up to his wrists. He looked up when I got closer. "You're Eli, right?" His voice was quiet, like he didn't use it much. "Yeah." "And you are Ben." He hesitated, then tore out a page and handed it to me. I took it, expecting some doodle, but froze when I saw what he'd drawn. It was a man in a long dripping coat, one hand gloved, the other bare, the fingers stretched and webbed, hooked like claws. A captain's hat shaded his face, but not enough to hide his mouth. His mouth stretched ear to ear, lips torn and pulled back, the corners sewn to his cheeks in a grin that wasn't human. The details were so sharp it made my stomach turn. I looked back at Ben. "What is this?" He didn't answer. He just watched me with pale, haunted eyes, his hand trembling as he smudged the charcoal across the edge of the page. That was when I noticed the water. The ocean had gone still, completely still. The boat stopped rocking. The ropes hung slack. The air pressed in heavy and cold. Ben's voice was barely audible. "Dead tide." The silence was so complete it felt wrong, like the world had stopped breathing. And then from somewhere out across the flat water, I heard it again, the same voice as last night. "Come see." The voice was so faint, I almost convinced myself it was just the wind. Almost. But the air was too heavy, too still. No breeze, no waves, no sound except that whisper rolling across the flat water. curling in my ears like it was meant only for me. Ben's charcoal pencil clattered from his fingers and rolled across the dock. He didn't chase it. He just stared at the ocean. His lips pressed so tight they went pale. I swallowed hard. The drawing still in my hands. You heard that, right? My voice cracked in the quiet. Ben didn't look at me. You should go. What was that? His eyes flicked toward me, wide and almost angry. Go now. The urgency in his voice made me back up without thinking. The wood creaked beneath my sneakers. I glanced at the water again. It looked dead, like glass stretched to the horizon. In that stillness, I caught a shape, a darker shadow moving just beneath the surface, gliding slow, patient. I blinked and it was gone. Ben slammed his notebook shut. You shouldn't have come down here. He grabbed his bag, stuffed the sketchbook inside, and brushed past me without another word. I wanted to call after him, but the whisper was still in my head, repeating, wet and broken. Come see. I left the dock fast, my pulse thewing in my ears. By the time I got home, the ocean was moving again, the waves crashing against the rocks like nothing had happened. Mom was unpacking boxes in the kitchen, humming off key to the radio. I stood in the doorway, soaked in cold sweat, my hands still shaking. You okay, honey? She asked without looking up. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. What was I supposed to say? That I'd heard a voice calling me from the ocean, that I'd seen something moving beneath the surface when the water went dead still. She'd think I was losing it. Maybe I was. Yeah. I muttered. Just tired. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the voice. I lay in bed with Dad's recorder clutched in my hands, too scared to turn it on again, too scared to hear that wet whisper repeat itself. Sleep didn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that grin from Ben's drawing, lips torn back, teeth missing, stitched into a smile that no human face should wear. By morning, I felt like I'd been awake for years. The school. Maya slid into the seat across from me at lunch without asking. Her tray sat untouched. She looked at me through those thick glasses. I sharp. You went to the docks. It wasn't a question. How do you know? She leaned closer. Because you look like you heard him. My skin went cold. Who? The drowning man. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He whispers to you. Sometimes he sounds like someone you know. Sometimes just like that. But once you hear him, he doesn't stop. I forced a laugh I didn't feel. It's just a story. You're trying to scare me. Her face didn't change. My little brother heard him 2 years ago. The words hit me harder than I expected. I stared, waiting for her to laugh, to say she was joking, but her eyes were flat, heavy with something that wasn't a joke. What happened? He went down to the shore during dead tide. He said he wanted to see something. My parents thought he was just playing. He never came back. Weeks later, they found him washed up near Grief Point. My stomach lurched. I'm sorry. Her voice cracked for the first time. His eyes were gone and his mouth. She stopped, pressing her lips tight, shaking her head. They said it was the water. But I know better. Everyone here knows better. The cafeteria noise buzzed around us. Too loud. Too normal for the way her words crawled into my head. You think that thing is real? I whispered. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. That afternoon, I went to the library. It was small, tucked above the town hall, and smelled like dust and salt. The woman at the desk didn't even glance up when I walked past. I headed straight for the archives, the shelves stacked with yellowed newspapers bound in string. It didn't take long to find it. A headline from 3 months ago. Local man vanishes near shore during dead tide. My throat closed. There was Dad's name. Benjamin Carter. Missing. Last seen heading toward the cove. Now it was ink on a page stamped into the town's history like all the others I found as I flipped backward through the years. Every 7 years. Always 7 children. Always during the dead tide. My skin prickled as I traced the pattern. Kids gone in 1979, 1986, 1993, again in 2000, 2007, 2014. It was endless, a cycle nobody had broken. And now it was 2021. My stomach turned. My hands shook so badly I almost ripped the paper. I shoved the clippings back and left. The woman at the desk still not looking up. Outside the fog rolled low and thick, and the sound of the waves carried up the hill like laughter. That night, I sat with the recorder again, my thumb hovering over the button. Finally, I clicked it on. My name is Eli Carter. I whispered. My voice sounded too loud. Too fragile in the dark. I think the stories are real. I think, Dad. I stopped. My throat was tight. I shut my eyes and then softly from the speaker. Another voice layered over mine. Come see what he saw. I dropped the recorder onto the floor. My chest heaving. My skin ice cold. The voice hadn't just whispered. Come see. It had used my voice to say it. I didn't sleep at all that night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my own voice echoing back at me, twisting those words into something I didn't want to hear. Come see what he saw. The recorder lay on the floor where I dropped it. Its little red light dark now, but I still couldn't bring myself to pick it up. It sat there like a living thing, as if the whisper might spill out again if I touched it. My sheets clung to me with sweat, the salty air pressing down until the room felt smaller and smaller, like I was being smothered. By the time morning light crawled through the blinds, my body felt like lead. Mom asked me 3 times if I was sick, and I told her I was fine. Though my eyes burned and my voice sounded like sandpaper, I didn't dare tell her the truth. She would have packed us up in an instant, maybe even dragged me to a doctor, and I couldn't explain to anyone, least of all her, that Dad's recorder had spoken in my voice. School was a blur. I drifted through classes, words sliding off me like water. When the final bell rang, I found myself standing at the edge of the playground without even knowing how I'd gotten there. That's when I noticed Ben sitting under one of the twisted pine trees that lined the yard, his notebook propped on his knees. He wasn't drawing kids or houses or anything normal, just the same figure over and over, filling entire pages with the dripping coat and the stitched grin. I forced myself to walk over. He looked up as I approached, his face unreadable. You hear it again, didn't you? He said. Not even a hello. I froze. How do you know? Because once you hear him, you don't stop. He closed the sketchbook gently like the drawings were fragile. He follows you after that. He finds ways to talk. A chill crawled up my arms. How do you know all this? He hesitated, then held out his left hand. I thought he was going to shake mine, but instead he spread his fingers. That's when I saw it. His pinky was gone, the stub clean and pale as if it had been neatly trimmed away. I couldn't help staring. What happened? Ben's voice dropped to a whisper. He takes a piece the first time you see him just to mark you. The second time he takes more. And I? A voice. By the third. He trailed off, his throat tightening like he couldn't force the words out. My stomach churned. You saw him. Ben looked away, staring through the branches of the pine. I thought it was a story, too. Then I heard the whispers. I followed them down to the shore, and he was standing in the water, waiting. He smiled at me. I couldn't move, like my body wasn't mine anymore. He walked up, touched my hand with his, and when I woke up, my finger was gone. I stepped back without meaning to. The thought of those hooked, webbed fingers scraping across me made my skin crawl. Why didn't you tell anyone? He gave a short, bitter laugh. You think they don't know? Everyone here knows. They just don't talk about it. Talking makes him stronger. Fear makes him stronger. That's how he's kept going for centuries. His words pressed into me like cold water filling my lungs. I wanted to argue, to tell him it was impossible. But the memory of that whisper of my voice twisting into something else wouldn't let me. Before I could say anything else, Maya appeared at the edge of the playground. She walked straight toward us, her braids swinging, her expression hard. You told him, she said to Ben. Ben closed his sketchbook. He needed to know. Her eyes snapped to me, sharp and unblinking. You can't play around with this. It's not a joke. I know, I said quickly. I believe you, both of you. My voice shook, and it was true. I did believe them, no matter how badly I wanted to deny it. Maya's face softened just a little. She adjusted her glasses, her hand trembling more than she wanted me to notice. My brother said the same thing. He told me he heard whispers. I told him to stay away, but he didn't listen. He went down during dead tide, and her words caught, her throat closing like she couldn't force the memory out. When they found him, his eyes were gone and his mouth. She stopped again, squeezing her eyes shut. He smiled when they pulled him out, but it wasn't his smile. The three of us stood there in the fading afternoon light, the weight of silence pressing around us. The other kids ran past, shouting, laughing, living lives that didn't seem to belong to this town at all. For us, though, it felt like the shadows were already creeping closer. That night, I tried not to touch the recorder. I shoved it into the bottom drawer of my desk and buried it under my notebooks. But just before midnight, I heard it again. Click. The sound of it turning on by itself. I froze in bed, my sheets damp with sweat. I knew I hadn't touched it. I knew it was still in the drawer. But when I looked across the room, the faint red glow leaked out from between the cracks of the desk. I pressed the pillow over my head, but the whisper still found me. Eli. Hearing my name made my blood run cold. I dug my nails into the mattress, my teeth grinding together. Eli. Said again, wetter this time as if the speaker was filling with cedar. Your father saw. Don't you want to see? Too. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the recorder out the window, but I couldn't move. My body felt nailed to the bed. My throat locked tight. All I could do was listen as the voice burrowed deeper, curling into my mind like a hook sinking into flesh. By the time morning came, I wasn't sure I could tell the difference between what I'd heard and what I dreamed. But when I opened the desk drawer, the recorder sat on top of my notebooks, not buried beneath them where I'd left it. The red light was still blinking. At lunch the next day, I slammed the recorder down on the table in front of Maya and Ben. "It's real," I said, my voice cracking. "You were right. He spoke to me last night. He said my name. He said my dad saw him." Ben's face went pale, his hand tightening around his fork. Maya's eyes glistened behind her glasses. She didn't touch the recorder, didn't even look at it. "Don't bring that thing near me," she said, her voice breaking. "That's how he gets closer. That's how he pulls you in." I pushed it back into my bag, my hands shaking. "What do we do? How do we stop him?" Ben gave a hollow laugh. "You don't. Nobody does. He takes who he wants." "No," I snapped. "There has to be something." Maya leaned forward, lowering her voice. "My grandmother used to say he feeds on fear. The more we're scared, the stronger he gets. That's why he leaves survivors like Ben. To keep the stories alive. To keep the town terrified. Every 7 years, he comes back and the cycle starts all over again." Her words sank in heavy. 7 years. 7 kids. My chest tightened as the pieces fell together. The cafeteria buzzed around us, laughter and chatter filling the air. But none of it reached me. All I could hear was that whisper dragging through my mind, calling me back to the water. That night, I sat awake with the recorder on the desk, the red light blinking like a warning. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. It was the only piece of data I had left. But now it felt like a doorway and something on the other side was waiting for me to open it. The whisper came just past midnight, faint at first, then stronger, sliding through the speaker with that drowned, broken draw. "You want to know where he is, don't you?" My skin prickled. I clutched the blanket to my chest. "Your father. He saw. He screamed. He sank. Don't you want to see what he saw?" I slapped the recorder off, but the words still crawled through my head. I pressed my palms against my ears, but they didn't stop. "Don't you want to see? Don't you want to know?" When I finally drifted into sleep, I dreamed of the ocean. The waves weren't moving. The water was flat and black, and from it rose the figure in the dripping coat. His grin stretched ear to ear. He didn't walk. He dragged himself every step, leaving puddles of brackish water on the sand. He raised his bare hand, long hooked fingers glistening, and pointed at me. When he opened his mouth, seawater gushed out, filling the sand, swallowing me whole. I woke gasping, the taste of salt burning in my throat. At school the next day, the other kids were quieter than usual. I caught them glancing out the windows, their faces pale. Even the teachers seemed on edge, their voices lower, their eyes flicking toward the ocean every time the bell rang. By the end of the day, the air had grown heavy again, the fog creeping in off the water. I found Maya and Ben waiting by the gate. Neither spoke until the last of the younger kids had gone. Then Maya said softly, "It's tonight." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "The first dead tide of the cycle," Ben said. His voice was flat, empty. "He always starts with the first one." I shook my head. "We can't just wait around for him. We have to do something." "Do what?" Maya snapped, her voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. "Fight him. You think nobody's tried. People have. They always die. Or worse." "Then what?" I demanded we just let him take us. She didn't answer, and that silence was worse than anything. That evening, the three of us met by the library. The fog was so thick it swallowed the street lamps, leaving only faint orange halos in the dark. The town was quiet, too quiet, like the whole place was holding its breath. Maya clutched her arms around herself. We should stay inside. That's what my parents used to say. Don't go near the water during dead tide. But even as she said it, I could see her eyes glassing over like something inside her was already pulling her toward the shore. I grabbed her shoulder. Hey, stay with me. She blinked, shivered, and nodded. Ben was watching the fog. His sketchbook clutched tight against his chest. His fingers twitched, smudging charcoal across the page. He's close, he whispered. We didn't have to wait long to find out how close. The first scream came from the far end of town, thin and distant, but sharp enough to cut through the fog. Maya flinched, her nails digging into my arm. We ran toward the sound, our sneakers pounding against the damp pavement. At the corner near the old cannery, we saw him, not the drowning man, not yet, but Tommy, one of the younger kids from school, maybe 10 years old. He was walking toward the shore in his pajamas, bare feet slapping against the wet ground. His eyes were wide open, glassy, his face blank. Tommy, Maya shouted. He didn't even flinch. We caught up to him and I grabbed his arm. His skin was ice cold. Tommy, snap out of it. He didn't blink, didn't even look at me. He just kept walking, his legs moving like he was on strings. When I tried to pull him back, his mouth opened. Water spilled out. Not spit, not drool. Water poured down his chin, soaking his shirt. His lips moved, and through the gurgle came that same voice. Come see. My stomach lurched. I let go without meaning to. Tommy kept walking straight toward the docks, the whisper spilling from him like a broken radio. Ben's hand shook as he pointed. He's calling them one by one. We ran after Tommy, but the fog thickened, curling between the buildings until the world shrank to only a few feet around us. Shapes moved at the edges of my vision. Small figures, children, all drifting in the same direction, all whispering in unison. Come see, come see. The sound made my head pound, the words pressing deeper, sinking into my skull. For a moment, I felt my legs weaken, my body wanting to follow. Maya grabbed my wrist, her nails sharp against my skin. Don't listen, she hissed. That's how he gets you. We stumbled through the fog together until the shore opened up before us. The ocean was flat again, black glass stretching to the horizon. The dead tide, and there he was. The drowning man stood knee-deep in the water, his oilskin coat dripping. Though no rain fell, one gloved hand hung limp at his side, the other bare webbed fingers twitching as though tasting the air. His captain's hat shaded his eyes, but not his mouth, that grotesque grin torn ear to ear. The lips stretched and sewn so tight they looked ready to split. Water dribbled constantly from the corners as though he were leaking from the inside. The children filed toward him, silent now, except for the steady sound of water dripping from their mouths. Their feet left dark trails in the sand like the ocean itself had marked them. I wanted to move. I wanted to scream. But when the drowning man raised his head, I froze. Even at that distance, I felt his gaze lock onto me. My chest constricted. My legs twitched, ready to step forward against my will. His whisper slipped into my skull, clear as if he stood right beside me. You want to know where your father is? I can show you. The whisper in my head was louder now, wrapping around my thoughts like seaweed around my throat. I can show you. Come see. Come see what he saw. My knees bent on their own, my feet sinking into the damp sand as if pulled forward by invisible strings. I tried to dig my heels in, but the pull was stronger than me, stronger than anything I'd ever felt. Maya clutched my arm, her voice trembling. Don't listen. He's lying. But the words cut straight through her. I saw her expression falter. Her eyes flicked toward the water, glassing over the same way Tommy's had. She staggered one step closer to the tide, her lips parting as though she were about to answer him. No. I yanked her back, my heart slamming against my ribs. It's not him, Maya. It's just the whisper. Her breath came ragged like she'd been drowning for hours. She shook her head violently, clawing at her ears as if she could rip the sound out. Ben stood frozen beside us, his sketchbook hanging limp at his side. His eyes locked on the figure in the water. His face was pale, waxy, almost translucent in the fog. I reached for him, but he spoke first. He wants you, Ben whispered. Not me. Not her. You. The words chilled me more than the ocean wind. What are you talking about? Ben turned, and for the first time I saw tears spilling down his cheeks, smudging the charcoal stains. You're his seventh. The realization hit like a wave. 7 kids. 7 years. 7 victims. And me, new in town, perfectly slotted into the count. My stomach flipped. The drowning man raised his bare hand then, the hooked fingers glistening in the weak moonlight. He beckoned, that torn grin widening until I thought his skin might rip in two. The children already at the shore moved first. One by one, they stepped into the water. I recognized their faces. Kids from school, from the playground. Their eyes were wide and empty, their mouths still dripping cedar. Each step they took sent a ripple across the otherwise dead-still ocean. But the waves never came back. The water swallowed them silently up to their ankles, their knees, their waists. They didn't fight. They didn't scream. They just kept moving toward him. Couldn't breathe. My lungs seized as though the air had been drained from them. Dad. I whispered without meaning to. The words slipped out before I could stop it. Like he was right there waiting for me in the black water. And that was when the drowning man spoke again. His voice inside my skull so strong it drowned out everything else. He screamed for you. He screamed your name when I took his eyes. Don't you want to hear it? Don't you want to see him again? The world tilted. The fog pressed in thicker and heavier. And I stumbled forward into the tide before I even realized my feet were moving. The water was ice cold, stabbing straight through my skin and into my bones. I gasped. But the pull was relentless, dragging me deeper. Maya screamed behind me, her voice distant. She grabbed at my arm, but the force nearly pulled her in. Too. Eli. Fight it. Don't look at him. But my eyes wouldn't close. Couldn't look away. The drowning man's grin filled my vision, stretching wider and wider. I saw then what I hadn't noticed before. The edges of his mouth weren't just torn skin. They were stitched with thin, glistening strands, like fishing lines strung through flesh. And the more I stared, the more I saw that his grin wasn't even his. It was made from other mouths. Other lips sewn into his face like a grotesque patchwork of stolen smiles. I gagged, while burning my throat, but the whisper burrowed deeper, smoother now, almost gentle. Your father's waiting. Just one step more. I could almost see it then. A flash beneath the water. Pale face. Eyes gouged out. Lips sewn shut. Dad. His body swayed in the black like a puppet. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the sea. My body lurched forward, the water rising to my chest. My arms flailed, desperate to hold on to something. Anything. Then Ben's hand clamped down on mine. His grip was trembling, weak, but it was enough to jolt me. Don't. He croaked. That's what he wants. That's what he feeds on. His words cracked through the fog in my head like lightning. I gasped, my chest heaving. And for a moment, the whisper faltered. I yanked backward, dragging Ben with me, both of us splashing clumsily toward the shore. Maya helped, her nails digging into my wrist until they left crescent in my skin. Together, they pulled me out, collapsing onto the sand. The ocean stayed still behind us. The children were gone. The drowning man remained, standing where the tide met the shore. His head tilted, the grin fixed, but his eyes, or the shadow where his eyes should have been, locked on me. His whisper came softer this time, almost like a promise. Not tonight, but soon. He sank back into the water, his body dragging down, coat billowing like seaweed, until only the ripples remained. And then even those disappeared. The dead tide lingered for another breath. Then the waves returned all at once, slamming against the rocks in a deafening crash. I curled into myself, shaking, my throat raw from screams I hadn't realized I'd made. Maya crouched beside me, her face pale. He wanted you. He chose you. I shook my head violently. No. It was Dad. He's still out there. Ben's voice cut in harsh and final. He's gone. Eli. They're all gone. That's what he does. He keeps them. Uses them. You can't bring him back. But the image was carved into me now. Dad's face pale and broken beneath the waves. His mouth stitched into silence. And I knew with a certainty that hollowed me out, that Ben was wrong. Dad wasn't just gone. He was still there, trapped, waiting. The drowning man had shown me on purpose. He wanted me to know. He wanted me to come back. For the rest of the night, I couldn't stop shaking. Every shadow stretched too long. Every drip of water from the eaves sounded like footsteps. Even when I closed my eyes, the stitched grin waited for me in the dark, whispering, patient, certain. I realized then that this wasn't over. It was only the beginning. I didn't remember falling asleep. 1 second I was lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the whisper to return. And the next I was back at the shore. Only this time I knew I was dreaming. The sky was empty, colorless, and the lighthouse at Grief Point loomed in the distance like a black tooth. The ocean didn't move. No waves, no tide, just that endless flat surface stretching out forever. And there he was, the drowning man. He stood in the water, shoulders hunched, his grin glistening in the pale light. His stitched mouth dripped constantly, each droplet hissing as it hit the surface below. He raised his hand and beckoned, and behind him, in the water, I saw shapes, dozens, bodies swaying just beneath the surface, pale and bloated, their mouths sewn shut, their eyes nothing but empty sockets, and among them, Dad. His face turned toward me, lips strung with fishing line, his jaw slack, his skin gray. I tried to scream, but the sound was stolen from me. The drowning man tilted his head as if amused and whispered, his voice as close as if he stood at my bedside. Soon, I jerked awake, choking on air, my throat raw. The recorder lay on my nightstand, the red light glowing. Though I hadn't touched it, I slammed it off and hurled it into the corner where it hit the wall with a sharp crack. For a moment, I swore I heard laughter gurgle from its speaker before it went silent. The next day, I found Maya and Ben at the church. Reverend Pike was there, too, his limp dragging him down the aisle as he lit candles at the altar. The air smelled of wax and cedar, though there wasn't a drop of it inside. He's not going to stop, I said. My voice trembled, but the words spilled out anyway. He wants me. He showed me. Dad. He wants me to come back. Reverend Pike's weathered face didn't flinch. He just stared at me, his eyes like deep pits. You've been marked, he said. Once he's chosen you, there's no turning back. I clenched my fists. Then how do I fight him? The Reverend gave a short, humorless laugh. You don't fight the tide. Boy, you survive it or you don't. Maya bristled. There has to be something. Some way to break the cycle. He shook his head. Every 7 years the same. Children vanish. The town buries the memory. And the tide rolls on. I've prayed. I've cursed. I've begged. And he still comes. He's older than this place. Older than the ocean itself. He doesn't end. Ben's voice was flat. But he grows stronger the more we fear him. The Reverend finally looked at him, and for a flicker of a second, I thought I saw hope in his eyes. Then it was gone. You can't starve a storm, he said and limped away. That night, the fog rolled thicker than I'd ever seen. It pressed against the windows like a living thing, seeping through cracks, filling the air with the sour stench of brine. I sat awake, the recorder smashed and silent in the corner, clutching a flashlight like it would do any good. At 2 o'clock in the morning, the whisper came anyway, not from the recorder, from outside. Eli. My heart stopped. Come see. The sound slipped through the fog, curling around the house. I pressed my hands to my ears, but the words crawled under my skin. Don't you want to see him again? Don't you want to know? The floor creaked. I wasn't alone. I turned the flashlight toward the hallway. The beam caught wet footprints leading down from the stairs, each one glistening, trailing brackish water across the floor. My chest seized. The footprints stopped just outside my door. The knob turned. I scrambled back against the wall, the flashlight shaking in my hands. The door creaked open and the fog poured in, thick and wet, filling the room, and through it stepped the drowning man. He didn't walk. He dragged himself, his coat dripping, his bare hand leaving streaks of slime on the walls. His stitched grin split wider as he tilted his head, the sound of tearing skin filling the air. He didn't speak with his mouth, but the words filled the room anyway. This time, I couldn't move. My legs were stone. My throat was closed. He reached for me, his hooked fingers stretching longer, sharper, dripping with cedar. The smell of rot choked me, but then Maya's voice cut through the fog. Don't listen, Eli. She was in the doorway, eyes wide, clutching a lantern she must have taken from the church. Ben was behind her, his sketchbook clutched like a weapon, his hands black with charcoal. The drowning man turned toward them, his grin twitching, his hand raised, fingers crewing. I felt the pull instantly, stronger than ever, dragging all three of us forward. My body lurched against my will, but Maya screamed, the sound raw and desperate, and for a second, it broke the spell. Don't give him what he wants, she shouted. Don't give him fear. Her words slammed into me. Fear. That's what he fed on. That's what gave him strength. If that was true, then the only weapon we had left was refusing him. I forced myself to breathe. I thought of Dad. Not the broken body I'd seen beneath the waves, but the man who told bad jokes and carried this recorder everywhere, who ruffled my hair when he thought I wasn't looking. I clung to that image, that memory, not the nightmare the drowning man had shown me. I'm not afraid of you, I whispered. My voice shook, but I pushed it louder. You don't get to win. The drowning man's grin twitched, faltering for the first time. His stitched lips pulled taut, the fishing line straining. The whisper in my head cracked, breaking apart like static. Ben dropped to his knees, scribbling furiously in his sketchbook, his hands a blur. He flipped it around and I saw what he'd drawn. Not the drowning man, but me, Maya, and himself standing on the shore, the waves crashing, the sky clear, alive together. The drowning man recoiled as if the image burned him. His grin split wider, a ragged tear ripping through his cheek, spilling seawater onto the floor. The fog shuddered, the walls groaned, and then, with a sound like the ocean collapsing, he dissolved. His body burst into spray, drenching the room with brine, and the fog sucked back out the window in a single violent gust. Silence fell. The floor was soaked. My flashlight flickered, then died. I sat trembling in the wet, staring at the place where he'd stood. He was gone for now. Maya sank beside me, her lantern shaking in her hands. We drove him back. She whispered. Ben shut his sketchbook slowly, his face pale. But not forever. I nodded, my chest hollow, my hands numb. No, but maybe long enough. In the weeks that followed, the town was quiet. No more whispers, no more missing children. For the first time in years, the dead tide came and went without incident. People smiled again, though it was thin, cautious, never too long. They knew the truth. He'd be back. I still carry the recorder, cracked, but silent in my bag. I don't play it, but I can't throw it away. It's the only piece of Dad I have left, even if it's cursed. Sometimes at night when the wind rattles the windows, I swear I hear the faintest echo in the static. Soon, I squeeze my eyes shut and try to remember the sound of his laugh instead. For now, the drowning man sleeps, but the tide always comes back. And when it does, I'll be waiting,